أكبر
الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله
صلى الله عليه وسلم
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة
لا حول ولا قوة
حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
لا حول ولا قوة
حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله حق لا إله إلا الله لا شريك له الحمد لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى والدين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون يا أيها الذين آمنوا واتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا واتقوا الله قولوا قولا سديدا صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله الكريم نحن على شاهدين وشاكرين الحمد لله رب العالمين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we glorify Him, we praise Him, we bear witness and affirm that no one is worthy of worship except Him and Him alone, and that we ask, Ya Allah, send the best of your blessings and ours upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who will follow him until the end of time. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters and loving children, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This afternoon, for the few brief moments we have, I would like to share some reflections on a topic that addresses a human nature, and that nature is overestimating ourselves and underestimating others. We think that we know it all. We think we are better than the others. And we make judgments. And we make, in the process, some mistakes. So what is that we can learn from our tradition not to overestimate ourselves, rather always underestimate ourselves and overestimate others who we interact with. That you are better than I, not I am better than you. Because ultimately it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is the ultimate judge. We are not the judges. Right? We can't make any judgment. Who knows what's in somebody's heart? We don't. We can't. And we are reminded often that we read in Surah Al-Imran, وَتُعِزُّ مَن تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَن تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرُ وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That He is the ultimate grantor of whatever He wishes to grant, the izzah, the respect, the dignity, the honor, and other things as well, fame, glory, wealth, you name it. It is up to Him. He grants whoever He wants to. And we can't. He has the ultimate power. So keep this in mind. That's the topic of the khutbah. Overestimating ourselves, underestimating others. And I would like to share a story which perhaps would amplify this idea of how unintentionally we as Muslims underestimate other fellow human beings. I am a Muslim, so I have this chip on my shoulder that I'm a better human being or the best human being and others are not. So about 25 years ago, I had the honor of visiting a very small city called Hilliard in the state of Ohio. And in that masjid, when I prayed Jummah, I met a brother who was in some leadership position in the masjid, and I was a visitor, so I introduced myself and he introduced himself to me and invited me for dinner to his house that night. And I went and met his family, 4 kids, and he's married to a wonderful lady who happened to have been converted from some other tradition to Islam. So in that conversation, I asked the brother, how did you meet? How did you meet your wife? And so the story goes, and that's the story I want to share with you in the context of overestimating and underestimating ourselves and others. So he said, some years ago when he moved to this place, he went to a library, local library, and asked the librarian, after not finding Quran on the shelves, how come you don't have Quran in your library? And the librarian said, I don't know what book is that, who wrote it, who authored it. So he said, shame on you. You have Bible, you have Gita, you have other spiritual books, and you don't have Quran, and you don't even know. What kind of a librarian are you? And the lady said, I'm sorry, please help me, and I will order a copy of Quran for you. So he gives the details. You can buy from XYZ bookseller, and you should have. Fine. And the lady is librarian, she is neutral, she doesn't have any biases per se, and she does the thing that a citizen asked her to do. She ordered copies of Quran. They come and she stacks it on the religious shelf along with Bible and other books. Weeks pass by, the same brother comes to the library. So the lady says, sir, you had asked me to get this book. I got it, it's on the shelf, you can check any time. And the brother said, it's not for me, it's for you to read. It will help you. It will help you find God. Overestimating ourselves. I know who God is. I know what my place is. You don't. So you should read this book. And the conversation ends in some fashion. And the lady, being a librarian who loves books, after a period of time, she thought that, this man is so passionate. Maybe there is something to check it out. So she grabs the book, Quran, reads a few pages here and there, finds interesting, intriguing. Time passes by. The Imam of the local masjid comes to the library. So she sees the garb different. So she approaches him. She said, I want to talk to the spiritual leader of the Muslim community in the area. Do you happen to know somebody? And the Imam said, I am the spiritual leader of the masjid, of the local mosque. We'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And thus the relationship begins between the librarian and the Imam. Fast forward a few more months, the lady visits the mosque to check it out, how the mosque functions. Who goes there? What kind of teaching do they impart? How different is that teaching than the teaching that she is used to, etc., etc. Now imagine this as a person who doesn't know anything about Islam, who doesn't know anything about Muslims, who just got introduced accidentally some months ago. She goes to the masjid, sits in the back, and kind of gets intrigued why women are in the back, not like sitting together with their family members, like in churches and synagogues happen. In any event, she continues to frequent masjid on and off, establish a relationship with the Imam, gets questions answered, does her own study, does her own research, and so on. A good amount of time passes by. Eventually that lady decides, I think this is good for me. It makes logical sense, and it appeals to my spiritual sentiment. She asked the Imam, what do I do now? He said, well, it's very simple. Like we all may have noticed, you stand up, take Shahada. And so she becomes a Muslim. Fast forward a few more months. That brother who had screamed at her to make sure that she gets a copy of Quran in the library shows up again in the library. And so she says, Salam alaikum. And the man panics. How does she know? And the conversation happens. He kind of feels a little bit embarrassed, but at the same time, he still says, see, I told you. You don't know God. You don't know who you are. That's why I asked you to get that book. This is how it helped you. Now you know who God is. She said, thank you. The relationship continues on. The lady goes to the Imam a few months later and said, I want to marry, and I don't know how it works. So as in our community, masajid happens, the Imam maintains a list of eligible bachelors and bachelorettes and tries to put them together. And the Imam says, I know a very good brother who probably would be a good fit for you. And guess who is that good brother? Is the same brother who screamed at her. And the Imam facilitates a meeting between the two. And the man is embarrassed to death. At the same time, he still has this sentiment of how proud I should be that I guided this human being who was lost to Islam. وَتُعِزُّ مَن تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَن تَشَاءُ. The lady says, okay, let's talk and we'll figure out. After a certain time, she says, okay, I'll marry you. I'll marry you on one condition. And that condition turns out to be that he was in the business of owning some 7-Elevens stores where liquor was being sold. This lady who accepted Islam just few months or years ago tells the person who was born into Islam, who was very proud of his faith, unless you sell the haram business that you are engaged in, I will not marry you. وَتُعِزُّ مَن تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَن تَشَاءُ. Now you figure out who is more deserving to be praised and admired and respected. The one who was born in the tradition and engaging into activities which are unlawful, or the person who just accepted Islam and did not know a whole lot about. This is where we as Muslims, we overestimate ourselves sometimes. I am a Muslim, I'm going to Jannah, everyone else is going to Jahannam. How do I know? I don't. I can't. It would be unlawful and sinful if I engage in that conversation inside my head, or overtly saying to somebody, God forbids, like this brother, assume this lady, that you don't know anything about God, you should know because I am a Muslim. You have an obligation to learn on your own. And see what Allah made this brother realize his failing and his shortcoming. So we hope and pray that in the country we live, in the society in which we live, we don't judge people simply because we happen to be of this tradition. We love our tradition. We try our best to practice as best as possible. We fail sometimes, we improve sometimes. And we hope and pray that whatever little we do is inshallah accepted. And that becomes something that will help us in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, that this was a person who lived his or her life in a meaningful way. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to not overestimate ourselves, always underestimate ourselves, and give the benefit of doubt and overestimate other people that we interact with in our family, in our friends, in our community, that they are a better human being than I, and I wish to become like him or her. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله ولكم وسائر المسلمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد. In the next 3 minutes we have very briefly, now that I have shared the idea of overestimation and underestimation, allow me now to briefly share some ideas so that we can refrain from this habit or this activity that we unintentionally perhaps engage in, to think about this. First, look within ourselves before we make judgment about the other folks. Right? Ask yourself, who am I? You know yourself. I know myself better than anybody else. Right? To give others the benefit of doubt. Sometimes we may see, I used to see that young people on the iPhones when in the masjid, I used to wonder why. Turns out they're reading Quran actually. So we just don't know the reason. And one judgment may make that person do the very thing we are judging them against. Sometimes it happens, right? You're very arrogant, you're always very angry, etc., etc. And that person, why is this person so negative about me? And the next time you see him, he's actually doing just that. Don't be quick to judge. That person might be struggling to actually correct himself or herself in the action that may not necessarily be most appropriate. In our conversation, in our behavior, in our making salat, sometimes we take it upon ourselves in public. You got to be praying like this, otherwise your salat is not accepted. Things of that nature. Inspire, don't judge. This is what prophetic tradition is. Give positive feedback to the fellow community member or a family member or a young son or daughter of yours. Give positive feedback, inspire them, motivate them, give them ideas rather than judge them. Nasiha is good, but judgment is not. And there are etiquettes to give nasiha to help other brother or sister improve or become better. The best way to refrain from judging someone is to mind myself. Where am I? Can I improve myself from where I am? Rather than focusing on others as to how they need to be improved. Imagine yourself in their place. My children, when they were very young, and they were going to middle school and high school age, I really would deeply respect and admire them for the challenges that they encounter on a daily basis in school from their fellow classmates and schoolmates, and yet they are able to uphold themselves for the values that they grew up with. Right? So young men who don't date in public school, for example, while all of his friends would do, that individual may not be praying, but he needs to be admired for upholding that one value. So we don't know what challenges that they are going through. And I can give many other examples. So imagine yourself in that position. Even if somebody is engaging in an unlawful activity, like that brother was selling liquor and thinking he's doing great, I'm still not to judge him. He's doing what he thinks is best. And I don't know if I were to be in his or her situation, what I would do. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to think of things via which we improve ourselves and we help others improve and become better human beings, but not judge each other. We ask Allah to forgive our mistakes and our shortcomings. We ask Allah to give the best of health to those who are sick in our community, and those who passed away, Ya Allah, give them Firdaus al-A'la. And those who are being challenged by those who are expressing their inhumanity by murdering, by killing, by starving people throughout the world, and particularly in Palestine, Ya Allah, we ask that you hold them accountable in any manner that you feel appropriate in this dunya and in akhirah as well. And the failings and the shortcomings that we have on our account, that we are unable to help them in a manner in which we like to, Ya Allah, give us the tawfiq, give us the strength, give us a heart that cries along with those who are oppressed and occupied in different parts of the world. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
حقا لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. استقيموا, straighten the rows, make space inshallah. Some of the brothers and sisters are coming in. Make space, inshallah ta'ala. Istahdiru azamatullah fi qulubikum. Have the presence of Allah in your hearts and your prayers. Wajjihu qulubakum ilallah. Allahu Akbar. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين بلى الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم السلام عليكم السلام عليكم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله استغفر الله العظيم استغفر الله العظيم استغفر الله العظيم اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وإليك السلام حينا ربنا بالسلام وادخلنا دارك دار السلام تبارك وتعالى يا ذا الجلال والإكرام السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Alhamdulillah Jummah Mubarak everyone Alhamdulillah Jazakallah khair for Brother Shakil Sayyid on keeping us humble on how we move and be Muslims. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us humble, to keep us on guidance,
Ya Rabbil Alameen, and to give us the benefit of doubt for each other. Husn al-dhan. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah ta'ala, we have a couple of announcements for this month, inshallah. Tomorrow, we'll have, as usual, our monthly gathering, specifically for ending the month of Rabiul Awwal. We'll have the gathering as we had last month on the